Welcome to 80s TV Ladies, part of the Weirding Way Media Network.
80s TV ladies, so sexy and so pretty. 80s TV ladies, stepping out into the city. 80s TV ladies, often treated kind of working hard for the money in a man's world. 80s TV ladies.
Welcome to 80s TV Ladies, where we explore the fabulous female-driven television shows of the 1980s.
Today is all about a book about a television show, an 80s ladies television show, one that helped us kick this very podcast off. There's a brand new, just released quintessential book about Scarecrow and Mrs. King.
And it is called The Ultimate Fan's Guide to Scarecrow and Mrs. King.
Scarecrow and Mrs. King was an action, comedy, romance television show that ran from 1983 to 1987. It starred Kate Jackson, Bruce Boxleitner, Beverly Garland, Mel Stewart, and Martha Smith.
Here's how the DVD release explains this show for those new to our podcast and Scarecrow and Mrs. King. Goodbye, PTA. Hello, foreign intrigue. Single mom Amanda King leads a quiet suburban life in Washington, D.C. until the day a dashing stranger shoves a package into her hands with instructions to give it to the man in the red hat. In no time, Amanda is dodging bullets, foiling assassination plots, and finding herself drawn to the dashing stranger, Agent Lee Stetson, a.k.a. Scarecrow.
In celebration of the book's release and the 40th anniversary event for Scarecrow and Mrs. King that's happening this weekend in Los Angeles, we have brought on the authors of the book, David Johnson, Taya Johnston, and Sabine Ludwig.
Welcome to 80s TV Ladies, guys. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
We're delighted to have you all with us today and excited to talk about the book.
Yes, and I'm excited to kind of meet all of you. So can you introduce yourself and tell us a couple of fun facts about yourself, like where you're from, what you like to do, and if you've ever written a book before? We'll start with David.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I've never written a book before. I've always kind of thought about it, especially, given the Scarecrow and Mrs. King subject matter. I've always wanted to do it, but until I had found and met Taya and Sabine, I really didn't think it would even be possible. I mean, I needed quality. I needed people who were really knowledgeable. And Taya and Sabine, you couldn't ask for two better fans to work on this project with. But I'm originally from DC. I've lived all over the country, pretty much in every region, and just moved to Nashville about 2 years ago.
And what do you do? What moves you around the country?
I've had so many different careers and so many different jobs. And, growing up, my dad worked for the airlines. So that was one of the reasons why we moved everywhere. But I don't think that you can learn everything that you need to know about life in one place. I'm happiest exploring and learning about different areas and different people, different cultures. It's fascinating.
Sabine.
Okay, hi, I'm Sabine, and I'm zooming in from Germany, and it's near Cologne. I live near Cologne in a little town, very countryside. I'm an IT administrator, and I've never written a book before, and I had never thought about it, and it never crossed my mind until David asked me to join his project. So that was really cool. I felt so honored to be asked for that. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And then Taya.
Yeah. Taya Johnston, Michigan, born and raised. And I am head of HR for an IT company here in Michigan. And never have written a book. My son and I have talked about writing a children's book, but never in my wildest dreams would I thought of writing anything like this. This is not in my wheelhouse for sure. I'm more short stories and things like that. So, but David asked, and with David, he's so enthusiastic, and he just gets you really pumped into excited about doing it. Like, the only answer would be yes. So of course, I'm happy to work with both Sabine and David on this. It's been very informative. We learned so much doing it, especially the ins and outs of Amazon, but it's been great.
And you guys are currently #1 TV guides and reviews on Amazon.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
crazy. It's been a whirlwind weekend for sure.
Congratulations. I'm very excited for,
Thank you.
Thank you.
clearly a need.
We are.
When did can each of us talk to us about how you became such a fan of Scarecrow and Mrs. King?
I think we're all like the same age within a couple of months of each other.
Yeah.
And I think we all, if I'm not speaking for everybody, but I'm pretty sure we all started watching it from October 3rd, 1983, and just were
Well,
in right from the get-go.
almost.
Oh, I
Because-
thought you were. Oh, right.
Well,
Because-
The point is,
Right.
the point is, it came to Germany in '86. So
Yeah,
there were
I
3
always forget
years.
that. I feel so bad for you. You didn't get
Yeah.
to experience it earlier.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
The world has changed a little bit in that they are now releasing everything simultaneously worldwide. But yeah, it wasn't that long ago when it did take a while for our shows to make it anywhere else in the world. So that's certainly understandable.
My husband watched it. My husband was in Germany. He was an army brat, and he lived over there at the same time. And so he watched it right along, I think, with Sabine at the same time, when it came on, because they only got one channel in the US, on the base. So he watched it right along then too.
And so, okay, I don't want to age anybody, but I'd love to know around what age you were when you first discovered the show, when you watched it for the first time. And then did it become a favorite show immediately?
Well, I was 9 years old, and I immediately fell in love with the show, with the characters. I mean, even at that age, I knew there was something very, very special and very unique about the show. It really wasn't like anything else that I had ever seen or experienced before. And I could not wait, for the next week. I mean, our Monday nights were always strictly scheduled so that I would never, ever miss an episode. So it worked out well, and I have my family to thank for that.
So your parents said, yeah, we'll make sure that there's nothing going on Monday nights.
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe I'm just they got sick of hearing me fussing and moaning, about any potential interruption to my viewing schedule.
No, I remember that appointment TV. You had to be there. You wanted to see it so you could talk about it the next day with your friends. All right. What about you, Taya?
Yeah. I had just turned 10. And unlike some of the fans, I didn't know either one of them, the leads, Kate or Bruce, from, Charlie's Angels. I was 3 when it started. So I didn't watch that. I knew of it, kind of in the peripheral, but not really, didn't pay any attention to it because I was too young, I guess. And then saw a preview for the show, and I was just like, what? This sounds amazing, and I just was sucked in immediately. And then I made sure I was in front of the TV because, and I mentioned this in the book, I grew up with 6 siblings, and my parents had their TV, and then we had a big, those big console TVs that had like your remote was whoever was closest, to go up and turn it. And so we had that. And the rule in the house was whoever's in the room first gets to pick what's on. Well, I have a brother. One of my brothers is 4 years older than me, and he was an A-team watcher, which is the same time and day as Scarecrow. And so I had to park myself there. As soon as I got home from school, got my homework done, I was down there, and I would just sit in that room until the show came on, because if I left for a second, even to go to the bathroom, he would take it over and I'd be, missing out. He probably didn't even like the A-team. It was just more to bug his little sister, but yeah. So it was definitely appointment TV.
We had a similar rule in our house in that there were 4 of us and each of us got to pick a show.
Oh, see, that's better.
So I didn't pick any of the shows that everybody liked. What's the point in that? So I would always pick something else. It was just too important. I couldn't miss my shows. There was no time shifting back then. So it was watch it then or miss it. So
Yeah, you had to watch it in the summer and, reruns, right? Yeah.
And Sabine, I'm very curious about television in Germany at that time. So it's 1986. You saw it 3 years later. Had you heard about the show, or?
It was completely different here in Germany. I mean, it wasn't a primetime show. It aired at 6 p.m. Not at 8. So I used to watch anything that came up, and it was like The Fall Guy and Remington Steele and Scarecrow and Mrs. King and Riptide, and it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Each day was a different show, so I would park myself in front of the television at 6 o'clock and would watch anything that came up. So at that time, Scarecrow and Mrs. King was just one of a million kind of thing, but it was special in a way that I thought I'd like the white monuments in Washington, and I fell in love with the Corvette, and I had a crush on Lee Stetson, and there was something special about this show for me at that time. But there was no talking about it at school or something like that. It wasn't a primetime show, so it was just one of a million.
Wow. And so was most of the primetime television German television?
Yeah, that was German television, or I don't remember what we watched at 8 o'clock. I don't know. I can't
Not
remember.
memorable.
So. No, it wasn't. Probably not worth remember it.
And then I'm also curious. So then you were watching dubbed versions or English language versions?
No, it were the dubbed versions.
Okay.
And the point about Scarecrow and Mrs. King is that we didn't get to see about, I think, 18 episodes that weren't on TV in Germany. They weren't dubbed. They weren't shown. They haven't been dubbed yet. There are, even on the DVDs, they are only in English. So we didn't get to see, for example, Nightcrawler. So when Lee proposes to Amanda, we didn't get to see that. They were just married at some time, and you didn't get the story of that.
That's bizarre.
So they didn't keep the order of the episodes. It was just a mix-up from any episode, any season. It wasn't mixed. Just there was no storyline in it. But I didn't know about the whole thing in deep until 2013, I guess. So I went to get the DVDs, and I found out about the forum and the fans. I didn't know there was a fan community about Scarecrow and Mrs. King. I didn't even know it was Scarecrow and Mrs. King. In Germany, it was a different title.
What was the title in Germany?
In Germany, it's called Agentin mit Herz, Agent with Heart. So it's more focused on the Amanda side.
Wow.
So
that.
completely different. Yeah. And they never called him Scarecrow in Germany. They always called him Lee or Stetson or something like that, because Scarecrow wouldn't translate very nice.
What does Scarecrow translate to in German?
The German word for Scarecrow, that's Vogelscheuche. It's the same meaning, but it doesn't make sense
Without the title in on that.
Yeah, it's just different. It doesn't sound that good. So yeah, it was quite different in Germany.
I love that. And yet for some reason, like, so you watched a ton of 80s television, American television.
I still do.
You still do. And so do you have other favorite shows?
Well, one of my favorites always has been Remington Steele.
Ours too.
And I watch The Fall Guy when it's on here. And Riptide has reruns currently. That's cool.
Wow.
They haven't been on TV for a long time.
My husband is a huge Riptide fan.
Cool.
Yeah. So we watch a lot of Riptide.
Yeah, it was very short-lived.
Yes.
I have not watched Riptide, I don't think, since it aired here. But I'll have to talk to Susan later about where I could find it. Because I liked it.
Who's in that?
It's Perry King and
is that the one with Joe Penny, right?
Joe Penny. Yeah.
Joe Penny, yeah.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah. Again, it's not my favorite of the Stephen Cannell shows, but there's something very odd about the concept of 3 guys and a robot living on a boat fighting crime.
Are you serious? That's what it's about?
It was.
I never watched. I honestly did not know what it was even about. That's funny.
They all live together on a boat.
Yeah, it was a time we just went with it.
You just went with it.
Hey, at least it was original.
They're basically Vietnam vets who are fighting crime, who have come back together to kind of fight crime, as you do.
Basically, it's about three guys who are detectives and who are always looking after the girls. That's the basic concept of the show.
It is a very 80s show. It's a very Cannell show. I make fun of it a lot because my husband's so into it. But my husband's a television writer now, and he wrote a spec for a lot of Cannell shows. So he's got a spec A-Team episode and a spec Riptide, I think, and a Rockford Files.
My husband's into season 3 right now of the A-Team. And every time I come in, he's like, I looked at this up. This guy was in Scarecrow. I'm like, oh yeah, that's so-and-so from this episode.
Yeah.
No, there was a lot of cross-pollination, if you will, amongst
definitely.
TV actors and actresses back then.
Yeah.
A lot more
usually
than
the
there is
bad
now.
guys. Usually they play the bad guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually.
All right. So, David, I'm going to go back to you, David. When we talked, you talked about that this book has been in the works for 40 years. So I want you to talk about that.
Oh boy. Well, where does one begin? I mean, I guess you could say it kind of started the 40 years of research started, I mean, literally by like the second or third episode. You know, I was recognizing or maybe finding, for example, say something that Amanda had in her kitchen. And, you know, when we were out at a store, and I would remember what it was. And I had literally probably 1,000 pieces of paper that I had handwritten on over the years. I was just always excited to find what something was, what something real was in the show. So you could say it started from that point. Or when we would go on vacation, you know, we did go to Washington, D.C. We did go to Los Angeles. And I, by accident, had recognized some places that I had seen in the show. And of course, that I'm feverishly taking notes. So it started there and it just snowballed with each passing year. You know, the notes and the information I had acquired had gotten bigger and bigger. And then with the advent of the internet, it exploded. If it wasn't for the internet, we wouldn't be anywhere near where we are right now. That helped so much. I mean, we've located over 1,000 filming locations that were used, because each episode technically has on average about 12 to 15. Now, some of those are real locations. Some of those are stock footage, you know, but it was amazing. We're almost done with the locations, right, Sabine? Don't we only have maybe 30 or 40 more to find?
Yeah, of the major ones, yeah.
Right. So it's an exhaustive list, but it's just, you know, anytime I would see somebody on TV or I would be exposed to something that related to Scarecrow and Mrs. King, I literally took notes.
And why is that? Were you doing other shows too? What was it about the show?
You know, I can't, I've thought about that for years. I mean, I think obviously for something to have played such a massive part in my life, literally every day for 40 years, life was conspiring that there obviously were lessons I needed to learn, life lessons. And I may not ever know what all of those were. But it was so unique. It was so different. It was so riveting. It was so powerful. It was so creative. It was beautifully done. And as unbelievable as the concept should have been, it was completely believable. And it roped you in, you know. I don't know that I could truly put into words exactly why I was sucked into that world.
And were there other shows that you were watching?
One other one that I absolutely adored. It is a very close second. It starred Lonnie Anderson and Lynda Carter. It ran for 13 episodes, filmed entirely in San Francisco. It was called Partners in Crime. And I could write a book on that show too, because I even moved to San Francisco and studied that show almost as much as I've studied Scarecrow and Mrs. King. But that's my other huge favorite.
We just learned about that show recently, and I found a couple episodes on YouTube and have watched them. I don't remember at the time having that, get through to my TV consciousness. But
Right.
it's fun. It's a fun show.
It was a terrible time slot. I mean, it was like 9:00 on Saturday nights, and they didn't air the pilot first to take advantage of the Vanessa Williams scandal at the time. The first episode ever aired was the fourth that was filmed. And that was actually probably the weakest episode of the series. All of a sudden, they're already running the detective agency. It made no sense. So when the pilot did finally air several episodes later, it was a revelation. People finally understood, but they really should never have done that. They should have aired the pilot, because the pilot by far was the strongest, most incredibly done episode of that entire series.
And also just to get people into the world so that they have an understanding of why things are the way they are. And
exactly,
there are other shows where they've done that, and it just boggles the mind.
Well, they tried to do it on Scarecrow.
Yep.
Brad Buckner told us that. I mean, that they tried to do it that way, and they're like, no, you have to do it this way.
You have to do the pilot first, and thank goodness. I don't think
it. Yeah,
it would have been killed
sure.
if they didn't air the Scarecrow pilot first.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the pilot explains everything about how this ordinary woman ends up working at this spy agency. That needs explaining in my mind.
That's so fascinating. Did he say why?
It was what they did at the time. He said that was something that
in the 80s. That was the trend that they were doing.
The trope.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting because I think it comes up with Remington too, right? Because when they sold the show, the networks at the time needed to know the show could run constantly, right? A pilot, great. Yeah, you can tell us a first-time story, but can you tell us the 40th story, right?
Right.
And for Remington Steele, the show they created, the show that the network asked for, is like now episode 3 of the show. And because it was in the middle, they were already working together.
Right.
And then once they picked up the show, they went, yeah, actually now we need the meat version. And they hadn't created it. They just created this other part. They literally like kind of wrote, directed, and created the third episode of the show, and then went back and created a new pilot for that show.
And it was on Simon and Simon did the same. They showed the pilot, what would have been the pilot show. They showed it as a kind of a flashback in the middle of season 1 or 2. I don't remember exactly. They did that. Yeah, it's awkward.
And maybe for some shows that might work, but for something like Scarecrow in particular, just don't think it would have worked.
The specialness and the magic is that initial meeting. I don't think it would have worked at all. I'm glad they didn't. They listened to Brad and Eugenie and did it right.
Okay. Yeah. So that brings us around to, who did you talk to for the book?
Well, there were 28 people that we got for the interview.
We tried for way more.
We tried for more than double that. And unfortunately, 40 years later, about 50% of a lot of people that worked on the show or appeared in the show are deceased. So that certainly didn't make it easy. But we got all the key players that are still alive, with the exception of one. We purposely held the book a little bit longer, hoping we would be able to get his interview, but I guess it wasn't meant to be. Hopefully, if there's a second edition of this book, hopefully we'll be able to include his interview.
And who is that?
Paul Stout. Wonderful guy, absolutely fascinating, and just friendly and so talented. He's just incredible. But we have, people in front of the camera and behind the camera.
That is great. So you interviewed Eugenie Ross-Leming and Brad Buckner, who created the show.
Yes.
Who we love.
Yeah. Love. Yes. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Forever indebted.
Yes. Big time. No, they were. Eugenie's, for example, is one of my favorite interviews. I mean, certainly some of the interviews are relatively short because the people were a guest star, appeared in one episode and couldn't remember that much, but we were still honored to have them, and they still added at least a nugget or two of information that we had never heard before. Everybody was done separately, and it was either done over the phone, in person, or via email back and forth.
And so I'd love to hear each of your favorite stories or an interesting story from the book.
Oh, boy.
I know there's a lot.
I have two.
Okay, you go.
One of my favorites was, and I honestly, I can't remember. It was a crew member, and when they were filming, it wasn't a specific episode. It was, they were filming and the neighbors were so loud next door. They had to keep shutting down production. And Kate had had enough, because she had a show to do, and she went over there, and she, as the person explained it, she threw money at them. It was like, shut up, like, just let us do our job, and then they were quiet. But then that's when they had to build the replica of the house on the ranch so that they didn't have to deal with, actual people living next door while they're trying to film. So that one was a really funny one. And then also one that I interviewed Dennis, and Dennis had a really funny one of Kate just being a little silly, which I'll leave it at that. It was really funny. And I enjoyed that one especially too. Got to see a funny side to her.
That's great.
Yeah.
Sabine?
Well, interview-wise, I love the most the stuntmen because I learned quite a lot about it. We got some information from how much money they made on which scene they filmed and stuff like that, and accidents that happened and things that were difficult, or stunts, how stunts were created and such. That was very fascinating. Some very unique interviews from people we thought we would never get. And I also like the lot of tidbits we got, like the script differences Taya did. They are just fascinating. What was in the script and what was really filmed eventually. I don't know, the locations are just amazing information.
Did you, by any chance, talk to the stunt person that was involved in the big helicopter dragging through the trees?
Yeah, David did that.
Yeah. Gary Davis.
Yeah.
Gary Davis, yeah.
We got some unbelievable content from him. I mean, his interview also is one of the best. And thank you, Gary Davis. We love you forever. He and Dennis Scott, they supplied us with probably some of the most breathtaking, interesting behind-the-scenes photos that have never been seen before.
Yes.
That is so exciting. I can't wait to see them. Did he do that stunt?
Yes.
That stunt's insane.
Yeah, he talks about it in the interview, so I don't want to.
You don't have to give it away, but we can talk. Everybody's seen the show. If they've listened to the show, they know the stunt we're talking about, which I think won a stunt award.
A Stuntman's Award.
Yep.
Yeah, a Stuntman's Award. It did not seem safe.
Yeah.
Gary also has another link into the Scarecrow realm too, but we'll leave that for the book. So
yeah, that's one of the surprises.
It's definitely interesting insights.
Yeah.
I love it. Now, how did you all meet? And it sounds like David reached out, but how did that come about?
David and I met a long time ago online.
Yeah, we had chatted online back and forth, and I mean, like it's pretty easy to explain how I met Sabine. She for years has been very, very interested in the filming locations, which that was also a massive, huge part of my research. So Sabine and I, have been in contact for years and comparing notes and trying to find all the filming locations. And then Taya I knew of and her wonderful websites and in the forums. But I hadn't met Taya until I think it was 2017. I had arranged for the Scarecrow and Mrs. King cast reunion at the Hollywood show, which they had never done before. And I was in frequent communication with Bruce, and Martha wanted me to assist her at her table. So I did that. And so I had to find somebody for Bruce, to sit with him and help him. And I went through, my list of friends and contacts, and I was just so impressed with what I had seen what Taya had done. I reached out to Taya and asked her if she had ever met the cast before, and she said no. And I said, okay, how would you like to work with Bruce Boxleitner?
And you were like, no, that wouldn't
And
be
she was like,
anything at all.
no.
I mean, so
Not him.
he's so unattractive. It's hard to look at him and hear his deep voice.
So, yeah, I hadn't met Taya face to face until
Yeah,
2017.
Yeah. I came in to the fandom like in 2001. And so I had seen, David and Sabine are the location gurus of all. I never really I enjoy seeing the locations, but I was never really into it. I'm more into the story side of the things, the characters and the actors and things like that, and the kind of the nuances of that. So we all kind of had our different areas of expertise, I think. And then Sabine and I met at the 35th.
At the 35th, yeah.
Yeah.
That's when I met David first. Yeah, first time.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you had met him before that. Okay.
Yeah.
So when did you guys start working? I know you've been working on the book for 40 years, David, because I'm very curious. Do you have any of those pages?
I have many of them, yes. And thank goodness, my brain remembered. I mean, a lot of the pages had been destroyed, had been lost. But I honestly remembered, I think, virtually everything that I had written down. It was just, it had that kind of effect on me, but I do still have some of them, yes.
I still have all mine. I took notes on every episode. And then I even got to the point where I was typing it up while I was working. I was a receptionist, I would get on their computer and type it up, and then it would have the dot matrix. I still have the dot matrix pages. Yeah. So that ages me so much.
Oh.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for some reason, I typed it all in caps. I don't know why. I guess I was angry or something. I don't know.
Well, in some ways, it's easier.
It was very important. Yeah.
Right.
I love that. I have a very visual image now of the all caps dot matrix breakdown.
Oh, I totally do. I have a scrapbook from when I was 10 of Scarecrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all the TV guide ads, the interviews, everything you can think of, I had in there. And it even went beyond high school, which is sad. It did.
So what is it? What is it about this show? Have you guys discussed this between the three of you? Do you have shared reasons for it?
We've talked about it, but I don't think anybody can pinpoint any, because it's different for Sabine, then it's different for David, and it's different for me. It's just different things. But I think it all, it was a very impressionable time, at least for me.
Yeah.
At 10 years old, it was very impressionable, and I rediscovered the show in like 2000. My oldest, I had my oldest then, and he had been diagnosed with cystic fibrosis, and it's a life-threatening illness, and it was very devastating to me. And I needed something of comfort, something to, just put all that, put it away for a little while and just do something for me that I enjoyed. And so I thought, what is that? And I went and found Scarecrow, and I thought, I'm going to look online. It was just, and I found forums, and then it just blew up from there. So I think it was a special time, at least for me, watching it as a kid, and then to have those memories and that comfort when I needed it. And I've heard other fans mention it too, in different aspects of their life where they went and sought it out. So that was for me.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Is that your story too, Sabine?
Well, it was in 2013 when I rediscovered Scarecrow, because my relationship had broken apart. And it wasn't in a way that I needed comfort or something, but I had to find out what my life was going to be. And I thought about things I had always wanted to do, like visit Washington, D.C. and see the monuments and stuff like that. So I went back in time and thought, well, now it's the opportunity to start sort of a new life or a new section in your life. And and then I found the DVDs, I found the forum, and I literally binged the whole 4 seasons, like 5 episodes a day. And then there were these English episodes that they weren't dubbed, and they were all new to me. And I didn't understand everything, so I started learning English at evening school. And so one thing led to another, and yeah, that's how I got into it again.
So Scarecrow and Mrs. King pushed you to learn English, or to learn it better than you already were speaking it.
Yeah, it actually did. It did.
Oh, that's great.
I don't know. I binged it so much that at one time I had some weird dreams about a story that involved the characters like Dottie and Lee and Amanda and such. And I tried to write a fan fiction about it. And looking back, it was so bad. My English was so terrible.
Your English is great.
Yeah.
And once I had some lessons at the evening school, I reviewed it. I touched it a bit, and it came out pretty good. But it's been my one and only so far.
Fan fiction. And then Taya, you've done some fan fiction.
Yeah. I was doing fan fiction when I was 10 years old with my Barbies. Like my Barbies, I've never told this, I don't think, to another person, but my Barbies were named Lee. She was a girl. She was a Barbie. Lee, Amanda, Kate, and Bruce. And I'm trying to remember, I don't think I had any others that were named that, but I would do the stories and I would come up with like little soap operas for them of the show with my Barbies. And I did that for a long time. And then, yeah, I've written like almost 24 fan fiction stories. Yeah. And videos and things like that.
Now, David, have you written fan fiction?
No, I don't think I have the, oh boy, what's the word?
Have you ever read one?
Oh, I've read a lot of it. It's,
Yeah.
It certainly wouldn't be my area of expertise. You know, I'm much more, I guess, a mechanical person, nuts and bolts, details. I love some of the stories I think are absolutely stunning, breathtaking, but I would be afraid myself to write something like that because I feel like I wouldn't have the ability to do the characters justice.
Sabina, David, when it comes to the locations, is there a location that you were able to locate that perhaps is your favorite? And what are the ones that are on the top of your list?
Excited.
No,
that you haven't yet.
I have to interrupt this. There's one that we can't talk about that is, I think, definitely my favorite. It's one of the holy grails. I'm not going to mention it.
You got to read the book.
Well, it's not even in the book.
It's not in there.
We're not allowed to have it in the book, unfortunately. But there's so many.
So this is just for the 3 of you.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
But no, finding
a secret.
it's a big time secret. But actually, the last time I saw Sabine, or the time before that, we actually went to the interior of IFF together.
That would have been cool.
Because we had just discovered that the interior of the Kenneth Hahn Hall of Administration in downtown LA was used as the interior. Because, in pilots, they typically use practical locations because it costs too much if you don't even know it's going to go to series to have to build something new. So one of the gentlemen that I had interviewed for the book fortunately remembered where the interior of the agency was in the pilot episode. So
David's head promptly exploded.
Yeah, it was just mind blowing. I mean, I think the neatest thing about this whole thing is when I take fans to various filming locations in and around LA. It's like Twilight Zone. It's like you've walked into the episodes. It is truly frightening in a good way. It's, you can't wrap your head around it. It's just wild to be where all of these wonderful, beautiful scenes happened, like the ballroom, in the triumvirate where the chandelier explodes. that's a hotel in Pasadena, and that ballroom
Beautiful.
is still pretty much identical. We've been there many times. It is just beautiful.
What hotel? I'm in Pasadena.
Yeah, we're sitting in Pasadena.
It's the Langham, Pasadena.
It's the Langham. Okay.
Yeah, they filmed a couple episodes at that hotel, but even though they tore it down and rebuilt it, because of earthquake codes, the two ballrooms, they tore down the entire hotel, but they were able to preserve the ballrooms themselves. So they did basically build the new hotel kind of around and on top of the ballrooms.
It's beautiful there.
It's always wonderful to hear that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, David could get us into any building. It doesn't matter if it's Fort Knox. I have faith that he could get us in there. I have never seen somebody charm his way into anything better than David. So,
well, I will say, if I have any talent or any skill in this world, let's put it down. It's been luck. It's been luck. I have accidentally gotten myself into a lot of filming locations that are very off limits. Never illegally.
It's not accidental.
Never illegally. Well, the training camp, Station 1, from a class act, the very first time I went into that was kind of an accident. They didn't discover we were roaming around that property for about 2 hours, but they were real nice, and took lots of pictures.
He's very good. I have to give him props.
He's got a real soft tenacity going on.
You're just sitting there. You're just like, oh my God. You're just like, oh my God, what is he telling these people? And then he gets his right in, and you're like,
well, you know what I think it is, though? I think, again, it does come. I would have to say it's luck. There's some kind of an energy. I truly believe that when you're meant to do something, that the universe conspires to help you, to get you to some place that you never thought possible. And that's certainly true. I adore Lynda Carter, obviously. And she told me once, she said, David, when you're doing the right thing, the right things happen. And I swear to God, every single thing about this experience, my whole life with Scarecrow and Mrs. King, has been that way. There's been far too many miracles and coincidences and doors opened to me because of that show than is realistically possible. So that just further, I think, cements my feeling that I was meant to do this project, to be a part of this project.
He's also got a lot of determination and charm, just to be.
No, I don't know about that. I just tried really hard.
Sabine, do you have a favorite location of the ones that you've visited thus far?
Oh, that's so hard to tell. There are so many that are so amazing, and that as a German citizen, you would never even think about getting in, because you don't know how to whom to reach out, or who to get in contact with also. And but one of my favorite locations that I discovered, unfortunately, it doesn't exist anymore in the way it did in the 80s. That was the Dooley's, the Dooley's pub that I personally discovered, and I am very proud of that, I have to say. Because there is, in the background where I sit in the pub, you can see a mural, a wall painting. And we even got in touch with the creator of that. And he told us a little story about it. And he's still active creating art in any kind. And that was really fascinating to find background and to get in touch with these people and to discover something really by myself, and not only with the help of David or others, or reaching out to people. So that was quite amazing.
Do you remember which one was the first location you were able to find and see for yourself in person?
My very first Scarecrow locations tour was Washington, D.C., and I think I covered every possible point, except for the Washington Monument, which is still on my list because it was closed at that time. I discovered a London location, the casino that we see, which is a privately owned house today. There was a lot of research, and I finally got to visit the next door house, which is an art academy something. So I knew I was at the right in the right building, but not in the right section like that. So that was very tricky. They filmed a lot of it in southern Germany, so I did that tour and discovered one or two that hadn't been found by then. Yeah, it's quite amazing.
You guys are kind of like detectives or spies.
Yes. Our agency training.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a mixture of finding the right person, meeting the right person at the right time, Googling, Facebook, getting in touch with people. Just don't be afraid to ask. That's the whole story. Yeah. I once met a guy in southern Germany on my tour, and I was like, well, I'm looking for a house like that. And he said, well, yeah, that's over there, and it's private, but yeah, that I remember I filmed there, and he told a story about it. And then he asked me, well, what else are you looking for? And I showed him a picture of the sawmill, and I had no idea where that was. And he said, well, yeah, that's you drive just that road and down next town, and there it is. And I was like, okay, thank you.
Oh, awesome.
I love that. And I know exactly the sawmill you're talking about, where Lee is betrayed.
Yeah,
I'm in Tegernsee.
it's a great experience always.
Oh my gosh. All right. So David, you've been writing this book for 40 years, but what was the moment you're like, okay, now I really have to write this book and I'd like to know about that moment.
Oh boy. I don't know. I think subconsciously I always knew that it had to be done and that I had to be involved. Again, I think when I discovered Taya and Sabine, I felt like I had a much sturdier, more realistic foundation, to potentially move the project forward. But I can't say I ever had really any aha moments. It was almost like, well, God, I've got all of this content, and I absolutely adore the Scarecrow and Mrs. King fans. And I'm like, it's unfair for just a couple people to know or to have this information, and every single day we're losing more information. We're losing more people. We're losing that. And it's like, I think that was the impetus to really just like, okay, I've got the content. Now it's just a matter of refining, stylizing, combining, and of course, adding. Like the interviews, obviously all of the interviews were done over the past, I'd say probably 3 years. But everything else, it was just, fortunately a lot of things fell into place, probably easier than it should have. But it's been a journey. I mean, literally the past 3-4 years of my life have been an unbelievable blur. Because every day I would spend on average probably at least 4 or 5 hours at a minimum doing stuff for the book. So I think the hardest part of the entire process was determining what I had to leave out. And I hated that. I wished I could have shared every single thing, but I'm happy. I'm very happy with what we have included and accomplished. I really don't think anybody's going to feel shortchanged. And I think a lot of people are going to be completely blown away by what you find out.
Did you have a methodology that you came up with in terms of which of you did which areas, or how did that all work in terms of dividing things up?
I can tell people, having never written a book before, especially one that was going to be this immersive, this complex, this detailed, the best thing in the world you can do, I found out by accident, is make your table of contents first and then work on your chapters.
Oh.
Because that way you can see from the very beginning, am I covering everything that I want to cover? And then you can become more detailed as you attack each of the chapters. So, Taya already had a lot of the content, like the script versus filmed differences. So a lot of that came from her. Sabine and I had a lot of the, obviously the locations. But yeah, I mean, Taya also had really good episode descriptions, that she had written. But I don't know. I think we all kind of knew without even really discussing what parts of the book we each really would focus on.
Yeah, in the beginning, I think we said, oh, we want this in there. I'll take that. And we want this. So I'll work on that.
The major sections were pretty clear from the beginning, I guess.
Yeah.
Taya, I want to ask you, where did you get the scripts?
I have a filing cabinet, a drawer for each season. And a lot of it's been through 23 years of gathering it through eBay, through kind of trades with other fans. If they had something, I have probably about 25 or so original ones. One actually has Kate's notes in it. So that one's like my pride and joy. And then signed ones and things like that. But, I have a script for every episode, but I sometimes have like 3 versions of a script, because it went through so many iterations and such. So just collecting through the years. Yeah.
What are some of your guys' favorite episodes or moments from the show? I know that's a tough question.
Some of my favorite, I like Brunettes Are In, Burnout. I'm more into the angsty, I don't like I'm not as much of a post. I like the angst of them. Are they going to get together? Are they not going to get together? I don't like the they're married and all that as much. Those are my least favorites. I like the angst. I that's how I write the fanfic for those as well. I don't think I'd be hard pressed to remember a story I wrote that was post them, married and, forever after kind kind
Yeah, that will they won't there is a beautiful, beautiful dramatic place to be.
I just love that dramatic. So Brunettes Are In and Burnout are a couple of my favorites. The first time obviously is perfect. I just love that one too.
David, Sabine?
Well, one of my favorites definitely is Burnout and Nightcrawler. Other than that, I can only say that my least favorite is Remembering of Things Past. I don't know why, but that's not, I don't know, it doesn't appeal to me. I like to look at it like seasonal wise, because each season has a different spirit kind of thing. So it's really hard to tell a favorite other than the 2 I mentioned.
David?
Oh, I'm
similar. To pick a favorite child.
Right. No, I'm similar to Sabine. It's probably easier for me to pick episodes that I didn't care as much for. Certainly I can say the season 3 episodes were without a doubt overall my favorite. The middle of season 2 all the way to the end also are some of my favorites. I love the pilot. I love Ship of Spies. I loved the Triumvirate, Pharaoh's Engineer. I thought was, you can't describe the job that Kate did.
Agreed.
I mean, I'll never forget watching when Pharaoh's Engineer came on, just all of a sudden that synthesized music. I mean, within 2 minutes, as a youngster, I immediately knew there was something drastically different about this episode. And then all of a sudden it said, oh, directed by Kate Jackson. So that was fascinating. The Eyes Have It, I absolutely love. God, there's so many I love. I thought Mission of Gold was shattering, where Amanda gets shot. I mean, I think in terms of an emotional impact, I can say that Mission of Gold probably was the hardest punch in the gut for me. So yeah, from an emotional impact, Mission of Gold was the most intense episode.
And can you talk a little bit about maybe if you got all the stars of this show for the book?
Well, we got all of the surviving main cast with the exception, unfortunately, of Paul Stout.
Yeah.
So we were able to get Kate Jackson.
I'm very excited about that.
It's
really good.
It's really good. It took several years, but her insight, I mean, honestly, of all the interviews I've read anywhere, that Kate did on Scarecrow and Mrs. King, I really think this interview in our book is the most extensive that Kate has ever talked in one place.
I would agree.
About her work on the show. So we're just thrilled and honored. I mean, what can you say about Kate Jackson? She's enormously talented, a brilliant woman, creative,
brilliant,
immensely capable. Brilliant is not even a strong enough word for what Kate Jackson is and has accomplished. I mean, she's just,
and that you'll see that theme throughout the book when interviewees were asked about, what they remember about the show and things. That I would say is the steadiest theme throughout the book is that Kate was brilliant.
Yes.
And just super, talented, and which, coming from a Kate fan, like, that's my bread and butter. It was wonderful to hear that.
That is amazing. I'm really excited to read that interview in the book. Who do you wish you had been able to speak to?
That's a huge list. I mean, Beverly Garland.
Mel and
certainly.
Beverly, for sure.
Mel, Sam Melville, Gene Stapleton. I would have loved to have picked their brains about their experiences on the show. There's just so many.
Speaking of Gene Stapleton, do you know if she was ever interviewed or spoke about her role on Scarecrow and Mrs. King?
I have researched that.
There's an interview.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an interview that she did when they were on set for The Legend of Das Geisterschloss. I'm going to totally butcher Ich verstehe ein bisschen Deutsch. Very little. So there's an interview from that, and very little.
Well, I would have loved to have some German actors or cast in the book, but it didn't happen. I tried to get Sky Dumont, but he didn't reply to my email.
The lint picker.
The lint picker, right.
I really don't think we left any stone unturned. We wanted to be as comprehensive, attacking every single angle possible. And, we were certainly lucky, and we're honored and thrilled to have what we did get. So I'm not really as disappointed as I guess I thought I was going to be. As you go in and you always have a knot in your stomach. I mean, every interviewee that I reached out to, I was so afraid they were going to come back and be mad at me for some reason, or say, how dare you, call my home phone number, which, I did have to do that a couple times. But no, I'm so excited. I can't wait to see what everybody thinks about all of this new content.
Okay, this is probably a good time to take a break. We'll be back. And we're back, and better than ever. So this is a lot of work. What was the toughest part, and what was sort of the best part?
I mean, it's going to be a lot of work. And every time I start a project, it just seems like I know it's going to be a lot of work. Like the podcast, I knew it was going to be a lot of work. But then you get into it and you're like, oh, holy heck, this is way more than I signed up for. So it kind of, there was moments of, this is awesome. And then there's, what was I thinking, kind of things too, where you're like, this is just so much work and so much stress, because it's not like we don't have day jobs,
right.
kind of thing. So, but it's been amazing. And this weekend has just been a culmination of all that work. Has just come to be. It's just been really nice, and couldn't have done it with better partners. So it's been good.
Sabine?
The toughest part for me actually was the proofreading, because I'm not a good reader. I'm slow. I really read each word to understand the context and such. I know David has done much more proofreading than I ever would have done.
Well, it's also not your native language either. I couldn't read German the way you've done this. So you don't give yourself enough props.
And your common rules I still don't understand. So at one point I felt like we will never get this done until we set a deadline. So at one point I said, I want to have this thing out for the 40th reunion. Let's get this done. I think it was a year ago or so. And let's pick up some pace and get the content together. We had so many pieces lying around, and let's get that thing together.
Yeah.
And you made it.
You did.
I think we all just kind of powered through. Yeah, you had to power
Yeah.
through on things.
All right, David, you're up.
Well, I mean, honestly, I mean, in terms of compiling it, putting it all together, there really wasn't anything quick about it. I mean, even writing 2 pages, you know, you go through so many steps, so many phases, and then, you know, emotional things come in and you're trying to make it the best you can. I mean, for example, I licensed all of the Scarecrow and Mrs. King television guide ads, all 65 of them. And the company I licensed them through did not have any of the originals. So I literally had to go through my collection, pull out all of my saved TV guides from 30, 40 years ago, and then also had to buy all the ads I was missing off of eBay. Sometimes I had to order 2 or 3 copies because the ones I got, the one page I needed to scan was horrible, you know, but I corrected the major rips, tears, and flaws. But I mean, each TV guide ad, and again, there were 65 of them, took probably 5 or 6 hours to get them each to where I wanted them. And then, you know, there's a lot of other photographs that I contributed to the book, and that took forever. So it's, you know, getting it to a final point took far more time than I ever would have expected.
And talking about the price,
Oh,
I mean, you had to license all the pictures from the TV guide ads and such. It's really money that went into the book.
right.
Yeah, if anybody thinks we're making money off this,
Oh,
Never.
we'll dissolve that right now.
no, we will never
Not if we sold.
recoup our
Not if we
cost.
sold them to every fan in the
Right.
world. Would
Right.
we? Yeah, not at all.
I'm curious what you found out about Juanita Bartlett.
She is briefly touched upon and mentioned in, I think, at least maybe 2 sections of the book.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot. Very, very little.
Yeah, there's just not a lot. I'm really
No, there's not.
like both from Rockford Files and this, you can find out about almost everybody else and not
Right.
her.
Right.
One interviewee mentioned how what a great writer that she was,
Right. Right.
and that she was a brilliant writer. So
Yeah.
and got
Yeah.
some great stories. I do recall that.
Cool. Now, will any of you be at the 40th anniversary?
I will be.
Yeah, all of us.
All of us.
Excellent.
Okay, guess who won't be?
Oh,
But you have a very
but
good reason. You have a
I
very
will
good
be
reason.
in Europe
Oh,
fun.
great.
Good for you.
On a family trip.
on a family trip with my mom
Yeah.
and aunt.
Nice. Excellent.
So unfortunately, I will not be there, but Sharon and our producer
Okay.
Melissa will be there. So I'm excited for them to meet you. I'm not jealous at all.
I'm jealous. So you get to go to Europe.
I am actually
In a
very
few
excited
years,
about
so.
that.
Yeah.
About that trip. But any last thoughts on the book? Any last thoughts on Scarecrow, Mrs. King, and what you hope this book will do for the fans?
I think I certainly hope it will bring a lot of new fans into the fold, you know, younger people, to develop an interest in the show, as well as give a stronger appreciation to the show from people who have studied it for years, like we have. I mean, because we certainly, it was eye-opening, the additional information that we learned.
Yeah, it was fun. It's fun to be in the know.
Do you feel like you guys are the ultimate fan information holders?
Oh, well,
To say.
we hope. We
Yeah.
would hope so. I mean, we titled a book that way, so we have an obligation to, you know, if you're going to use the word ultimate, that's a lot to live up to. So we just hope that everybody will see it that way as well.
Remember the I forget, is it Wonder Twins? You know, when they put their powers together?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, except there's triplets.
Yeah.
We kind of all put our powers together and it made something, you know, the sum of all parts, you know, kind of thing. It made it, I think, more special. Like David said, it's not, you know, one person has all this information anymore. It's, you know, it's all out. That's why I have my website so that other people can enjoy it as well.
Well, I love your site. It's fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Right now, the book is available worldwide on the various Amazon websites.
And it is a paperback.
It's a paperback.
It's a paperback. And there is not a digital version of the book.
Not yet. We hope to offer an electronic version at some point, but it's not going to happen super soon.
Okay. And then Taya, the podcast, you guys finished your walkthrough
Yes,
of Scarecrow and Mrs.
we
King.
did.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's mkcpodcast.com is our website. And then it's on anywhere where you stream podcasts. So, and then callmeacab.com is my Scarecrow site. So, yeah.
What are you guys going to do now?
Sleep.
More research.
I had to finish this book while moving from one house to another. So that still I have to work on. And I'm still working on the last minute surgical details on my Amanda King mobile station wagon that will be making an appearance at Amanda's house.
That's what you're going to miss.
I have a station wagon that I have made cosmetically identical to hers. It's taken many, many years, but I even had it painted the proper 1985 color. And it's a dead ringer, no pun intended. But the owners of the exterior of Amanda's house have graciously allowed me to park the car in her driveway for the group photo at the reunion. So, I mean, that's a chance of a lifetime.
How fantastic.
That is amazing. That'll be on Friday of the reunion.
That will be on Friday, right?
Are you going to take it through the bus stop, David?
I eventually will take it down to the bus stop as that's close to the hotel, from the Eyes Have It. And
Just be careful.
I won't be driving this car up over the curb like
don't
the
do
other
that.
cars. Yeah. But no, she enjoys it. There's even a little blurb about her in my bio in the book. So she's a good girl. She's a wonderful, wonderful car.
Now, I have a quick question about the car that's just for me. Is it the same car that Laura's sister drives in Remington Steele in the 2 episodes that involve Laura's sister? And I think at one point they grab the car, they jump in the car and drive off. And when I saw that, I was like, that looks like Amanda King's car.
Wow.
If you know the episodes, I can take screenshots. I have the DVDs, so David can verify them.
Okay. I will do my homework now and get back to you on that. But thank you so much for coming on and talking with us. And thank you for creating this book. I'm always surprised when there's like a beloved show, which I think of this as, that doesn't have a book. So you guys, I'm very grateful for you guys creating it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Take care.
Bye, ladies.
Bye.
In our audiography today, of course, the book, The Ultimate Fan's Guide to Scarecrow and Mrs. King by David R. Johnson, Taya Johnston, and Sabine Ludwig, is available on Amazon.com. The link is in our description.
There's a Scarecrow and Mrs. King Facebook fan page that you can visit to connect with other fans of the show. Also, you can find the episode walkthrough podcast, Mrs. King Chronicles, at mkcpodcast.com, and it's on all the platforms at Mrs. King Chronicles. Hey, we want to hear from you. What's the 80s ladies-driven TV show that you remember or have heard of and would like for us to cover?
Tell us your thoughts at 80stvladies.com.
And please help us make the show by going to patreon.com/80stvladies.
Please join for our next episode, where we will be looking at the 80s aesthetic with TV screenwriter, comic book writer, and filmmaker Brian Edward Hill. He's amazing. It's going to be so much fun.
As always, we hope 80s TV Ladies brings you joy and laughter and lots of fabulous old and new shows to watch, all of which will bring us closer toward being amazing ladies of the 21st century. See you next time.